Her name is Miss Ariana Stanberry. Stay tuned for more. But before we go over to Ariana, please hit that subscribe icon. Hit that subscribe icon, guys. Give us a like. Make sure you comment. Ariana,
Hi.
welcome to the Music Hacks Network.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here.
Awesome. I just understand that you guys just came from a very important presentation with some of the persons back at your school.
Yes.
How was that?
It was good. It was a panel discussion on Jamaica's influences on the music industry and pop music culture with some incredible Jamaican musicians. It was a really good discussion.
Awesome, awesome. All right. I am indeed happy that you guys got back here just in time for this show. All right, and let me welcome all the persons who are joining us live on YouTube and also the persons who are with us on Zoom. You have a lot of followers who are here to support you this evening. All right, and I'm sure we have a great show for them. Right, Ariana?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I know you have a lot of followers on Instagram. All right. I am not sure about the other platforms. All right. But I'm sure you would want to tell some of these persons who Ariana is. Who is Ariana?
Sure. So my name is Ariana Stanberry. On social media platforms, I also go by the term Ariana's Music. I'm a 22-year-old Jamaican woman saxophonist, alto saxophonist, originally from Jamaica and currently residing in Connecticut, USA. I'm attending the Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts, where I study professional music with focuses in performance production and music education. And my hopes right now is to just continue to be an inspiration to Black women, especially Jamaican Black women, and to just continue to advocate for what matters through my musicianship and through my artistry.
Awesome, awesome. You are living the dream of many Jamaican musicians, including myself. Uh, Many of us, when we got started out, our dream was to enter the Berkeley College. And I know a lot of persons are still aspiring to even walk through the gates for just a minute, right? So I'm going to ask you, before we actually get into some other stuff, what's the experience like for you at Berkeley College?
Overall, it's been a very good experience. I can definitely say, as a Jamaican, there are not that many Caribbean students on campus, and that is something that I do hope to be able to change one day. But besides that, the education is great, the curriculum is great, the faculty is great. I would say, as far as the finances go, it is very expensive, and if I'm being honest with you, I don't if I could have chosen, another path, musically speaking, I probably would have privately learned through Berkeley professors and Berkeley students, versus, paying the full tuition and everything like that, because the financial strain is a lot. But overall, like, it's just an incredible opportunity to be there, to be able to represent, not just women in the woodwind field, but to be able to represent Jamaica on campus as well as on our virtual campus.
Awesome. All right. So getting into Berkeley, actually, what's the process like? I can imagine that it's a tedious one, but give us a description of what's that like.
Sure. The process is kind of different for everyone. I'll speak on my process. I know in the very beginning, all I did was I did the online application, which does cost money. Unfortunately, every part of the Berkeley audition costs money, and the Berkeley application costs money. So I did the online application, which is just filling out my information and my school information and everything like that. And then once I got a response, I got the information for my audition. And since I do reside in Connecticut, I'm only a 2 hour drive away from Boston. So I was able to drive in and physically do my audition. But for students who are international, there is an online audition option as well. So after you do your audition and your interview, which is a key part of the audition, then the school will get back to you to let you know if you were admitted or if you are accepted into the school. And then once you become accepted into the school, the process to like finalize details for virtual or in-person learning, dorming, housing, everything like that, it kind of flows naturally once you've gotten accepted. But if I'm being honest with you, like I stated in the very beginning, there is a fee with the application, and for the audition, if you do plan on coming in person to the school, there is a fee if you do plan on traveling to Boston to audition.
Okay, cool. I know here in Jamaica when you are trying to get into our school of music, if I can remember quite clearly, it's about three pieces, three individual pieces. Jonathan and those guys will bring me up to speed a little bit later. So you're required here to play about three pieces for audition. What's it for Berkeley?
Can you repeat the last part of the question one more time?
What about your pieces, your audition pieces?
Okay, so this section of the audition is different for every instrument. Because I'm a woodwind instrumentalist and a saxophonist, my audition pieces are selected differently. For me personally, as a saxophonist, all I needed to do was prepare one piece, which was just a song of my choice. And it was just a piece that I needed to perform to the best of my ability. And for that song, I chose Now's the Time by Charlie Parker. It was a jazz alto saxophone transcription. And then the second requirement of me was to choose another piece that I would improvise over. So this is again any song of my choice that I would improvise over. And for that piece, I chose "There Will Never Be Another You," which is a jazz standard, and I improvised over that. And then in addition to those two pieces, what also was required of me was basically like a short assessment on my musical knowledge. So they did like a clapback example where they would clap a few rhythms for me in person, and then I would have to clap those back, as well as a melodic example. So they sang something and then asked me to play back what they sang on my saxophone. And I think that was pretty much it. Those were the four main components of the audition, as well as sight reading. I forgot. Sight reading was a huge part of the audition as well. So they gave me like a huge book
Okay,
of maybe 20 pages, and I had to just sight read whichever number they called out.
right. Well, it's pretty much the same here. Um, I, if I can remember quite clearly. Let's get now into who is Ariana. Now, Ariana, how did you actually get started in music?
So music honestly comes natural to me. I got started because of genetics. My whole entire family is actually made up of musicians, and some of my family is here today on the call. My big sister Ariel, she is a vocalist, and she also did used to sing and do theater in high school as well. My dad, he plays everything, but his main instruments include the piano, the keyboard, the bass, the guitar, the drum set. And he started us out early in music from when we were back in Jamaica at Portmore Missionary, because he also was the choir director there. My mother is also used to be a vocalist. My little sister is a multi instrumentalist. Everyone in my family, even my grandpa, is a pianist and a singer. Everyone just kind of is a musician. So music really came natural to me because it was what I was raised around, especially being raised in the church. And that's kind of how I got started. And then I started playing the saxophone a little bit later on in my music career. At the age of 9 years old, I started through public school education in Connecticut. And I was in what grade? I believe I was in the fourth grade.
Okay. All right. You play the saxophone. I can imagine that you will say that the saxophone will be your personal favorite among all of those that you're introduced. Okay, here we go. All right. That's my next question. Which instrument is your favorite among all of those that you have listed? Yeah, your mic is unmuted. Sorry, muted.
Okay.
Right.
Actually, my favorite instrument is the bass guitar. I really love the bass. Like the bass is my absolute
Wow.
favorite instrument. So I'm really gonna try and start shedding it this summer because I really want. My goal is to get as good on the bass as I am on the saxophone. So those can be my two main go-to instruments. But yes, the bass is my favorite.
All right. I see the bass players on Zoom creating a storm because just because you chose the bass. All right. You know that's my favorite instrument as well. And one of these days I'm gonna try to learn to play the bass guitar as well and the saxophone. All right. All right. Who do you listen to for inspiration, Ariana?
That's a great question. In the past, I listened to a lot of Tia Fuller. I'm not sure if you are familiar with who Tia Fuller is. She is an incredible alto saxophonist, a Black woman alto saxophonist, who's actually also a professor at Berklee College of Music. If you watched the movie, what was that? The name of that movie that just came out? What was it called? The cartoon. Do you know what I'm talking about? With the little Soul. It's called Soul. If you watch the movie Soul, Tia Fuller is the saxophonist who's featured in that movie. I used to listen to her a lot. She's incredible. As well as Yellow Jackets. I really love Yellow Jackets. They're an incredible band. And I just really love listening to instrumental music. I'm not really a fan of lyrics and vocalists per se. I just really love, I can just listen to the rhythm section, play songs without, a lead soloist for hours. But nowadays I've actually been doing a lot of listening to my friends. So like I'll go to Instagram and go to different people's social profiles and listen to just those short videos. And that's usually it for me. Like that really makes my day, just being able to support local musicians and my friends who are musicians, especially at Berklee, and just listening to them and studying and learning from them as fellow musicians.
All right. I'm happy you said the Yellow Jackets because one of my favorite all-time bass players used to play for the Yellow Jackets. And you know who that guy is? His name is Jimmy Haslip. You know that guy? Awesome, awesome bass player. I used to listen to Jimmy all the time. Left-handed bass player, phenomenal. All right, cool. All right, so um, I am gonna ask you now, Ariana, just to describe your creative process. I know you mentioned a lot of persons that you actually listen to, who you will take stuff from, but how do you create your own sound on any one of these instruments that you play?
That's a lovely question. Recently, I've been trying to specify my sound by kind of combining like the message behind my music and my sound, if that makes sense. I've just been trying to really focus on the purpose and the meaning behind each video that I create or each original song that I create, and then kind of like tying in that message to the sound, if that makes sense. And that's like a long process that will take for me to master. But I've been working on that a lot lately. I know in the past, another thing that I used to do was just copying. I would listen to like Phil Woods, or I'll listen to Yolanda Brown, and some other phenomenal saxophonists, and literally just try and copy and mimic their sound. And then at the end of the day, especially Art Pepper, I can't leave out Art Pepper. I did listen to a lot of Art Pepper and Charlie, and I would just try and take their sound and combine it and use it to like influence my sound on the saxophone as well. So I think those two are the main ways that I kind of craft my creative sound, is mimicking and copying saxophonists that I really love listening to, and then trying to relate the message and the meaning behind my music to my sound.
Awesome, awesome response. You saying that I can hear my past teacher telling me all those words, maybe in using different phrases, copying. And I don't know if a lot of these younger musicians try to do the same, because most of the masters, well, in fact, all the masters, when I did my research on some of them, especially Charlie Parker and those guys, they did a lot of copying from the great. All right, just sticking that record in that player and just play, and that's one of the best way of learning a particular genre. All right, so what's your favorite genre to play?
Right now I've been doing a lot of Afro beats actually, like Afrobeat and dance hall. Right now I think that's my favorite thing to do because in the past and going into Berkeley, they kind of force jazz on you in every way, shape, or form. So they force you to kind of do those Charlie Parker transcriptions, which are great and they benefit you greatly. But when it comes to like what I'm passionate, like really passionate about right now, I really am passionate about like utilizing those bebop languages and applying it to modern Afrobeat songs and dance hall music. Yeah, but I also
Awesome.
really sorry, I also really love R&B as well and gospel.
Yeah, man. That is very, very, very good. It's good that you're keeping up the Jamaican um, genre alive in whatever you're doing. Right? Because even a lot of those guys that who we look up to, they came here and they take the Jamaican stuff and they use it in whatever they're using to make their music great. All right. All right. I'm going to allow you to go into your presentation in the next couple of minutes, Ariana. But what are you working on exactly to sort of build your future for the next 5 to 10 years? I know you're going to Berkeley and all of that. Just putting that out there for the guys who are on YouTube and on Zoom for those persons who do not know. Ariana, is a Berkeley student. But what are you working on personally to sort of set the stage for the next couple of years?
There are a few things that I'm working on, some things that I cannot name yet. But for starters, I'm definitely going to start working more on releasing original music. I think that is one thing that a, an important thing that I've taken away from my degree so far at Berkeley is just the ability to create as much original content as possible and share that with the world. So I'm gonna definitely continue to work on that and release new music in the next 5 to 10 years. In addition to that, I really want to connect more to home and to give back to my community in Jamaica as much as possible. So I'm just trying to brainstorm what that will look like, especially in the next 5 to 10 years, especially as it pertains to connecting the Berkeley community to Jamaican musicians as well. So I really hope to kind of explore and navigate that side of things. And in addition to that, I really do hope to one day post COVID be able to like get on tour with an incredible artist, whether that be a gospel musician or a big musician. Like that's always kind of been a small dream of mine, is to be able to perform and tour with a top musician. So maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, if that opportunity comes around, I'll definitely hop on it.
All right. Is there anyone on the top of your list that you would like to tell us? Who would that person be that you would like to tour with?
Ty Tribbett, definitely Ty Tribbett is
Wow.
number one. I don't know why, but I've just I love I think it's more so his energy and his personality. And then if I had to choose a second person, absolutely Coffee. I would love to I would like that would make my everything. If I could get on the same stage as Coffee, I will be all set. I will just quit music. Like that will be it for me.
Awesome. All right. All right. What about a solo career? Any solo albums coming up?
I will be releasing a new single in the next month and a half to 2 months, so stay tuned for that this summer. And I have a couple more projects that I'm working on that I cannot release information about yet, but do stay tuned for a future
All right.
EP as well as a future album.
Definitely. All right, Ariana, I am going to ask you to state the topic that you chose for tonight's show. What's the topic?
The topic is a new and easy way to improvise.
And why have you chosen this topic?
So improvisation for me has always been kind of like a robotic concept because I learned to improvise through school and it was a really like strict way to learn to improvise or textbook way, I guess you could say. And so for today, I just kind of want to explain my thought process behind improvisation and how I go about drafting and forming my solos to kind of simplify it for anyone who may be listening who has been struggling with forming solos or struggling with understanding how to best improvise.
Awesome. All right. There we have it, ladies and gentlemen, on YouTube and on Zoom, Miss Ariana Stanberry. At this time, I am going to introduce her to you so that she can do her presentation. And I'm sure a lot of persons have been looking forward to this presentation tonight on the Music Hacks Network. So, ladies and gentlemen, please receive Miss Ariana Stanberry.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to share my screen with you all. Um, okay, so today I am going to be talking about a new and easy way to improvise. So like I stated before, I'm basically going to be sharing with you all my thought process behind improvising. So everything that happens inside of my head is what I'm going to attempt to explain to you. And the goal is to, in a way, simplify the concept of improvisation. And while I'm explaining everything, if anyone happens to have any questions about anything that I'm saying throughout the presentation, please feel free to send it in the chat because I do want to make sure that what I'm sharing is making sense as I explain it. All right, so some crucial talking points in our conversation. First, I'm going to define what improvisation is for me, and then I'm going to go through some options for improvisation that I kind of sort through in my head. Then we're going to go through what mixing and matching those options looks like. Then we're going to talk about the power of the major scale, as I like to call it. Then I have two exercises that I'm going to share with you guys that I personally use. One is called the major scale exercise. It's an exercise that I use when I practice my saxophone to just better be able to navigate the major scale. And then the second exercise is a process that I used to use in a way for us to create our own personal licks. And then we're going to dissect some of my solos. Unfortunately, I cannot play my saxophone for you guys today live, but I do have some videos of past videos that I've recorded in the past. I'm going to share some of those videos with you and dissect my solos in them. And I have short transcriptions of some of those solos that we'll look at. And then after we'll wrap up. And if you want a copy of those transcriptions, I can feel free to share that with you as well. So to start, what is improvisation? So to me, improvisation is self-expression. It's a combination of notes, phrases, and space to essentially create a melodic sentence or a melodic paragraph. And it really is just a conversation that you're having with the rhythm section or with the backing track. And for me, I personally like to view improvisation as like a statement that is able to complement the statements that have been made already throughout the song or throughout the whatever piece you may be playing. And at the end of the day, it does come down to, call and response between you and the rhythm section or the backing track. And also it is a message. So I really do like to view improvisation as a sentence. And in my head, that's kind of how I construct the way I go about doing my solos. I really just think about it as a sentence or a paragraph, and I kind of phrase it that way. So here's some options for improvisation. There's a lot of options here. This is kind of what the inside of my brain looks like when I think about a solo. So I'll explain some of these to you, and then later on I might dive a little bit deeper into them. So number one, scales. This is really obvious, but for those who aren't necessarily professional musicians, learning and memorizing and implementing your scales to everything that you do is just super, super important. The scales that I listed here are not the only scales. There are so many different kinds of scales that you can utilize, especially as a saxophonist. But the scales that I listed here are the main scales that I personally think about and use when I improvise. Something about me is I actually used to not be that good at music theory, so I didn't really like take the time to memorize, my um, diminished, half diminished scales and augmented scales and things like that. So I really just focus on these: the major scale, the natural minor scale, the melodic harmonic minor scales, the chromatic scale, and then the major and minor pentatonic scales. Another section that is really important right here, riffs and licks. So these are just like memorizing different statements of the sentences from musicians that you like listening to and implementing them into your improvisation. So this can be like short little lines, it could be a short rhythm, it could be two different eighth notes or anything that you hear somebody play that you really like, and then just copying it and pasting it into your solo. Another key component is repetition. Repetition is very important. Repeating any idea always helps to grasp the listener's attention. And then next we have long notes. These are great for kind of decorating that sentence and for adding to the beginning or the end of a melodic sentence. Space. Space is one of the most important ingredients to every solo. And then the last section here, I have written down is like arpeggios and utilizing tensions. So utilizing thirds, like if you have a C major scale, um, playing that scale with thirds, or arpeggiating the scale, like if you're in the key of G major, and arpeggiating like 1 3 5, starting on each note, is also a great way to utilize arpeggios. And then, of course, tensions, never being afraid to use notes that don't necessarily belong in the scale or belong in the key. Even though it sounds like it shouldn't belong or it doesn't belong, it's always a great thing to add to spice things up. All right, so mixing and matching improv options. This is kind of another example of what goes on in the back of my head when I improvise. So, like I said, improvisation to me is kind of a sentence, and I think about it like having a beginning, then there's a middle, and then there's a climax somewhere in the sentence, which is like the high point, and then there's an end to the sentence. So, here I listed some examples of things that I have. Where is it? Here, sorry. Out of these options here, I listed what I will choose to place in my beginning, middle, climax, and end of my solo. So for example, in a typical solo of mine, in the beginning, I might choose to utilize some long notes. I might use an ascending scale, any of the scales I listed. I might use space. Sometimes in the very beginning of my solos, I don't actually play at all. I just let the other soloists finish, and I kind of sit there and vibe at the rhythm section, and then I take a while to come in. So space is powerful. And then also pentatonics, I might utilize a pentatonic scale in the beginning. In the middle, I might spice things up by implementing a riff or a lick that I memorized from another musician. Using my chromatic scale, I tend to use the chromatic scale a lot. Descending scale to kind of counter the ascending scale in the beginning if I used that. And then, of course, space. And I'm going to keep repeating space because the space in a solo is just as important as the notes that you play in a solo. So for my climax, I typically utilize high notes, like holding out a long high note, or I might utilize repetition. So I'll repeat an idea or a phrase or one single note just to get the listener's attention. Another way I can utilize the climax is the arpeggios, playing it like really, really, really fast, and that kind of also helps to grasp the listener's attention. And then tensions as well are great for climax because that also grasps the listener's attention. And the climax in my solos is typically the part of the solo to me that is kind of not necessarily the most important, but it's a huge part of the solo because you want to make sure that your solo goes somewhere or your improv goes somewhere and it doesn't just stay steady. So the climax is very important. And then to end the solo off, I might end on a long note. I usually like to end the way I start so that it's kind of like a complete sentence. So if I started with a long note, I'll probably end on another long note, or utilize a rhythmic pattern, restate the melody. I like to restate the melody a lot in the end of my solos, or use a descending scale to kind of counter what I did in the very beginning of my solo. All right, that was a lot. So before I move on to these two exercises, does anyone have any questions about anything that I've said so far? And you can feel free to write it in the chat, um, and then I'll read from the chat. And if not, we can continue because I know this is kind of a lot of information. All right, everyone's good. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so here are two different exercises that I absolutely love and I like to use when thinking about improvisation. So the first one, I call it the major scale exercise. It's an exercise that I use every single time that I pick up my saxophone to play. Literally every time I play my saxophone, I do this exercise to practice, in addition to long tones and everything like that. So what this exercise is, and I kind of created it on my own, but I don't know if it's like an official exercise. So if anyone knows of this exercise and knows the name for it, feel free to state the name. So first, I start off by, I'm going to use the C major scale, for example. I start off by just playing the C major scale up and down at 80 beats per minute on the metronome. So that's pretty slow, and I play it as eighth notes. So if this is 80, this is not 80, but for example, if this is 80, I'll just play like if that makes sense. And then what I'll do is I'll start jumping around to different notes, still in the C major scale, but at 80 beats per minute. So I'll literally just take the C major scale in my head and start playing at the same tempo, but jumping to random notes throughout the scale. And it is supposed to sound obnoxious. It's supposed to sound kind of ridiculous. But the point is, eventually you'll get so comfortable with the C major scale, and you'll be able to jump around to different notes that you'll naturally be able to create your own melodic lines throughout the C major scale without really thinking about it that much. So the point is to turn it into like a muscle exercise versus I need to know this note and I need to know this note and make it sound like this. If that makes sense. So after you play it a few times at 80 beats per minute, you're going to want to increase the tempo by 10 beats per minute at a time. So the goal is to increase this until the metronome breaks. You want to be able to do this as fast as possible, because the goal is to be able to utilize this exercise in any song at any tempo. And then eventually, like I said, you'll be able to just play around the C major scale and work your way around the C major scale as smoothly as possible. And then the other great part of this exercise is the fact that you'll be able to play those same melodic lines in C major in A minor. And then the goal is to be able to do this for all your major scales. That way you'll get super, super proficient at playing and creating different melodic lines in all your major scales and all your minor scales. All right, so this next exercise is something that I used to do a lot in high school, and I'm going to teach it to you guys right now. If you do have a piece of paper, or if you want to open up your notes app on your phone, find something that you can write on. That would be great. We're going to do this exercise together, and then I'll maybe ask like two of you to share what you created before we move on. So this exercise I used to use in high school because I used to go through kind of like a mental block with being stuck on knowing what to play. Like in jazz band, when the teacher would be like, Ariana, take a solo, I would just be overwhelmed and I wouldn't really know where to start. So this is a great exercise to use if you don't know where to start with your solo. So first you want to write down a set of 8 notes. We're going to use the key of C major for now. And if you are not a musician or if you're not comfortable doing this exercise, that is okay. You can feel free to email me after this and I'll send my contact info at the end. And then we can connect and I can teach you how to work through this exercise. But just write down a set of 8 random notes in the key of C major. And then you want to beam them together to create 2 sets of 4 eighth note lines. If you don't have a piece of notation paper, it's okay. You can just write down the letter names on your notes app. So just literally write down, type C, A, G, F, whatever. So once you do that, you're going to want to do that same thing 3 more times. So you're basically going to have 4 different short lines of random eighth notes. So I'll give you guys a little bit of time to work on that, maybe just like 1 to 2 minutes, and then I'll unmute myself and continue. And if anything is confusing, feel free to write in the chat and I can explain. Yes, Kyle, I can explain the exercise one more time. I'm actually going to send an example in the chat really quickly. So an example, so you're in a C major scale. An example would be, Kyle, I don't know if you see in the chat, but I wrote down 4 different notes in the key of C major, and they're totally random notes. And then you're basically going to just do that 3 more times. So you have 4 lines. I'll write down 4 more examples in the chat. All right. Will anyone like to share at least one line that they came up with? You can feel free to write it in the chat or unmute. I'm sorry. That was really funny, Joe. You can feel free to write it in the chat or you can unmute yourself really quickly and share one of your lines that you created. Awesome. Okay, Kyle just created a beautiful, beautiful line. So he has C, D, E, G, and then the next 4 notes are E, A, B, and C. And then let's see, Daniel, Edwards, and Ruthie. Okay, awesome. So Daniel's is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Awesome, Daniel. And Ruthie, we have C, G, B, D, E, F, A, B. Awesome. Okay, so the reason why I had you do this exercise is because it's what I used to do all the time in high school. I would literally take out my notes app on my phone and I would literally do what we just did. And then when the teacher called me up to do a solo, I would look at my phone and play these random notes. So the goal and the point for this exercise is to be able to create lines that aren't necessarily like related to a specific rhythm or a specific pattern, if that makes sense. And you can take these lines and learn them in every single major key and minor key. And even though they sound rigid and they sound awkward, the more you memorize them and play them over again, you'll realize that they can really turn into some awesome lines. So soon I'm gonna kind of show you guys what that sounds like in application, if that makes sense. I'm gonna play you guys some videos that I've done and show you what that kind of sounds like. But congratulate yourselves, good job. Thank you for participating in that exercise and feel free to do it whenever you like feel stuck when it comes to improvising, because this is a great hack. I used it and I know it will work for you. All right, awesome. So let's dissect some of my solos really quickly. See. All right, so what I'm going to do for you guys is play a short video that I've played before, and then I'm going to show you on the lead sheet like a phrase that I played in that video and explain to you what I utilized in my improvisation in that video. So I'm going to start with this video here, and please let me know if you can hear the sound when I start playing. All right, I'm going to play that one more time, and I want you guys to focus on the section, only the section that I play, if that makes sense. All right, so that section right there, I'm going to dissect it for you guys really quickly. So here, this first example on the top of my screen, can everybody see this? Where it says example number 1? Okay, awesome. So this first example, I'm going to break down what I played. In the very beginning, I held out a middle E on the saxophone, and that is an example of me utilizing a long note. So remember, in the beginning of my presentation, I explained how sometimes I like to start off my sentence, my improvisational sentence with a long note. This is a real life example of that. So I started off with a whole note. I held out an E, and then right afterwards, I played a descending major pentatonic line in the key of E. And then right after I played that line, I went right back up the scale. I went back up the major pentatonic scale, and then I kept going up the major pentatonic scale until I hit high E right here. And then I descended and ended on utilizing repetition. So I repeated 4 Bs, the same note, B, 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 B. And that is an example of me utilizing repetition. So in this solo, in this short section of my solo, I utilized a long note. I utilized both a ascending and descending major pentatonic scale, and I utilized repetition. So I'm going to play that short video for you again, just so that you can hear what I showed you on the sheet music. Awesome. Okay, next video. So this is a video that I did with one of my saxophone students, Arissa Nicole. She's incredible. You should go follow her on Instagram. I'm going to play through the entire video, and then I'm going to go back to the end where the solo section happened and dissect a part of my solo there. All right, awesome. So I'm going to play the beginning of that solo section over one more time and then show you guys the part that we're going to dissect. Here we go. Sorry. The part I'm about to play right now is the part I want you guys to focus on, right here. All right, so I'm going to show you, actually, I'm sorry, I just played the wrong one. Okay, right here. Right there. Okay. So as you can see on my example sheet on number 2, the first part of my example, I started that solo by using the major scale exercise that I explained to you guys. So in this song, we're actually in a minor key and we're in D minor for me on the alto sax, which is F minor in the concert pitch. And so I just started playing the D minor scale, but I was jumping around to different notes like I told you guys about in that exercise. So this entire section right here is me just playing around in that D minor scale. And then as you can see in the second half of the section, I just used my stepwise motion and I just played down the scale all the way to D and then worked my way all the way up until high G. And now the second part of that video right here. In the beginning, I utilized repetition. So I was playing da da da, it's like a random rhythm that I came up with. And then you could tell I wasn't really paying attention to the notes necessarily that I was playing. Because when I went back to transcribe this, I was like, why did I jump from A to C to G to D? I was confused because I hadn't transcribed it before on a piece of paper. But then I noticed that in the moment when I was playing that solo, I was really more so focusing on the rhythm that I was playing more than the actual notes. And that just goes to show that sometimes like when we repeat different ideas in our solos, the notes you use might not necessarily be that important, but the rhythm and the intention behind what you're playing can go a long way. This is an example of that. And then at the very beginning, I kind of did the opposite of what I did in the beginning of this solo. So up here, you can see I kind of went down the scale and then went all the way back up and landed on high G. At the end here, I went down the scale. I started on A, I went down to G, stepwise motion, then I jumped and leaped back up to F and made my way all the way down back to F so that I can land and resolve on a consonant note, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna play that video one more time so you can hear what that sounds like, and then we'll move on to the next video. All right, so you can hear it. You can hear how I resolved there at the end. I hope this is making sense so far. If anything is confusing, please feel free to let me know and I can slow down. So I have 2 more videos I'm gonna dissect for you guys and I'm gonna go really fast. So the next one is a video I did with my friend Jolie in New York City. We did the cover of the song called Okay, and I'm gonna play the full video and then go back to the beginning and show you the part that I dissected and transcribed for you guys. All right, awesome. So the part that I transcribed in this video is the very, very beginning of the video. So I'm gonna play the first couple seconds. I want you guys to listen to what I played. I'm gonna play it maybe like 2 or 3 times so that you can catch it. And then I'm gonna ask someone to volunteer and sing it back for me. So here's the very, very beginning. You're gonna listen to this section right here. Just that. I'm gonna play it again. I'm gonna play it one more time, and then I'm gonna ask somebody to sing it. All right, well, does somebody wanna volunteer and sing that back for me?
All right, I think you kind of did something like that.
Yes, that was beautiful. Who was that? Was that Jonathan?
Ronaldo.
Oh, Ronaldo, thank you. That was incredible. Yes, 100% spot on, delicious. All right, I'm gonna show you what that looks like on notation. And I do apologize, transcribing is not my strong suit. So this is not in any way, shape, or form notated accurately to the way I was playing, but the actual notes themselves are accurate. So in the beginning, I basically just started on A. So this song is in A minor for me. I started on A, and a rhythm that I utilize a lot in my improvisation is da da da. If that makes sense, da 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 da. I use that rhythm a lot. So I use that in the beginning here, where I did a quick trill from A up to B flat, back to A, and down to G. So da 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 da. If that makes sense. And then I went down the minor pentatonic scale, E, D, C, A, G. And then here you can see I utilized the chromatic scale. I like to use chromatic movement a lot, like I stated before, just to spice things up. So I went from E down to D sharp, down to D, and then to C natural, and ended on A again, just like I started. I'm gonna break that down really quickly again. I started and ended the same way with the two A's. I did the descending minor pentatonic scale, used a little bit of chromatic movement here, and then ended on the two A's again. So I'm gonna play that short section for you, do the last video, and then we can wrap things up. So here's what it sounds like. All right, awesome, awesome. Okay, last video. Let me see. All right, so where's that video? Satisfied. Okay, here it is. So before I play this video, I did mention earlier during the interview when Chris asked me kind of like who I listen to. Something that I really love doing is just going to my friends' pages on Instagram and listening to like their covers or videos or anything that they do and taking melodic licks and riffs from them. Like yes, studying from professionals is important, especially as a saxophonist. It is important to study your Charlie Parker riffs and study your Art Pepper riffs. But like Jonathan said, also it's important to go to Joe Davis's page and listen to his videos, listen to your friends' videos, and take from them what you can take from them. Because honestly speaking, there's a lot of great content that you can just catch from your friends, and sometimes it can be just as good, if not even better, than content from the real goats. So in this video, I went to one of my friends' pages and I listened to them cover the song "Satisfied" by the Walls Group, a bass cover, and I basically just played over that bass cover. I'm gonna play the video for you very quickly, and then I'm gonna show you a short riff that I caught from the video that I like to copy and paste into every major and minor key that I play in to use as a riff. So here's this short video. If I never get that All right, cool. So if I was in high school and my teacher asked me like, "Hey, Ariana, who do you listen to?" and I told them I listen to my friend, they would probably get upset because I've had that being told to me before. Actually, one of my teachers, he said like, you gotta listen to the greats. But from that video alone, I've collected a lot of incredible language to add to my sentence. So here, in example number 5. This is the very beginning of that video. I'm gonna put it for you. If I never get that. Just that. Da, 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 da. Who wants to sing it for me? Who wants to volunteer to sing that? Anyone?
It seems as if everyone else is shy. I think it goes like this.
Yes, beautiful. Love it. Who was that? Was that Kyle again?
Ronaldo.
Oh, Ronaldo again. I don't know why I said Kyle. Thank you, Ronaldo. Everybody give it up for Ronaldo. That was beautiful 2 times in a row. All right. So what that basically was in the F major scale. F major for me, so this is not F concert. 1 2 3, so that's F G A, and then he jumped to a 5. He is in the bass player, and then he repeated 1 2 3 all over again. So it's like 1 2 3 5 1 2 3. That's really the pattern there, and it sounds a little bit simple, but if you copy and paste this, you can even copy and paste it and use the major scale exercise I described and like kind of rewrite it or change around the notes. This is like a really cool line that you can add to your improv, and it does not just have to be in the F major key. It can be utilized in any major key as well as a minor key. But yes, that is all for my presentation. I just want to share my screen really quickly. And yeah, that is all. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Chris, Jonathan, Fulva, and the one and only Joe Davis, who you'll be hearing from in a moment. If anyone has any questions about anything that I mentioned, you can feel free to reach out to me here via email. My email is arianasmusic.connect@gmail.com. And if you're interested in having a copy of the short transcriptions that I showed you in that document, feel free to email me and I can email you a copy of that. You can reach out to me on Instagram music underscore, as well as check out my website at arianastanberry.com. And I am on WhatsApp Business, so you can feel free to contact me on WhatsApp with this phone number here at the bottom. I'm at 818-732-0873. So thank you guys again.
Wow, Ariana, that was well executed. And if any at all your teachers or your peers at Berkeley get the chance to see this presentation, I'm sure they will be impressed. That was great. All
Thank you.
right. It was informative as well as entertaining. All right. Now at this time, I earlier you said that your family's here. I did make a note of that. Your parents and I think your sister, right? So I'm gonna give your parents a chance to say something. We want to hear from what it is like from the parents' side to send a child to the Berkeley College, because I know it must be a lot of stress. But let's hear from one of your parents. I didn't mean to put them on the spot.
Okay, mommy or daddy or Ariel, anybody want to say anything? I feel like daddy will be good at answering this question.
I wonder why. Okay. Good day, everybody. How you doing?
Bless up, Sir Stanberry.
Yes. Okay. Long to be in and on the land of wood and water, right? and by extension, I'm actually going to say and music. Yeah. It's a wonderful forum that you guys have here. I rather consider it a privilege to be here listening to Ariana's presentation. And indeed, there's not much I can say, but by way of just saying that I am a fan and a believer of expressions, certainly expressions that are done through music, and I think it is a language by itself and one that it can be universally communicated. One of the things that a lot of uh, practitioners are practicing, certainly in the softer side of the carrier domain, is the idea of using music for healing. And I can tell you that there's no other time when that concept was more tested than this season, when persons were going through, well, have been going through great issues because of COVID constraints and so on. And so I think you're onto a good thing. Thank you for promoting Ariana in this forum and for allowing her to express her talent accordingly. But in a general way, I want to say that the idea that persons who have roots, certainly in the warmer parts of the Caribbean, and in this case, Jamaica, have made tremendous influence and and has caused a lot of the music genres around to be more fully appreciated. And I think it comes from primarily an innate um, passion as Jamaicans that we have when it comes to doing things, and that has no, I don't need to explain what that is at this time. Many persons try to find what the root cause is, whether it's through sports and running. They say it's the food. They say it's other things, but there is a tremendous uh, challenge, I believe that, and passion that Jamaicans put to things. I'm going to use this analogy, very strange. I don't think you may have heard it before, to explain what I think is some of the causes of how the Jamaican music has come out and spread across the world. We know about the banana boats and all those things with the slave trade, but I want to believe that those who were, first of all, the stronger of the population came to the Caribbean first, because they pulled those persons who were right from the African diaspora, and so we have this tremendous amount of energy that has led to a number of things, including changes in the social domain as well. And I think that has influenced the music to a great extent. And so I want to thank you all and say that this idea of of making an influence on the world through music and through your one's own passion is albeit an opportunity to change the world, right? By influencing from one small space. In the scriptures, we are told we should be what we call ministers or witnesses, right? In Judea and Samaria and to the utmost part of the earth. And so this music is in fact an ideal train, I call it, a means of transportation of the message and the hope. Thank you very much.
Awesome, Doc. Thank you. Thank you, sir. All right. All right. At this time, Ariana, we're gonna take about 10 minutes of Q&A. I'm sure the persons who you have invited on Zoom, they are ready to ask you a few questions based on your presentation at this time. All right, guys. So you know how we do it. I'm gonna ask you just to use the hand icon. All right, and we will get you on your way. One question per person. All right, Jermaine Francis.
Sir, Ariana, good night.
Good evening.
Yeah. So my question to you, because I'm listening to you tonight, it's my first time hearing you, but listening to you tonight, sound that you have, if you play on a recording, I can tell that's Ariana, and it's the first time I'm hearing you. So how do you develop that sound, Because that sound, you have a very distinctive sound, and I like that. As I say, I'm hearing you for the first time, but if you should play on a record, tomorrow I could tell that's you, because of the sound that you have.
That's a beautiful question. Thank you
Yes.
for asking that. I honestly think the best way to answer that question would have to come down to my tone. I've heard a
Mm-hmm.
lot that that I have a super distinct tone, and I think the reason I do have this distinct tone is specifically because of my embouchure and the way that I play the saxophone. I actually
Mm-hmm.
need to do a video on this, but the way that I play the saxophone is considered technically incorrect, because instead of resting the mouthpiece in my mouth on my bottom lip, I actually
Mm-hmm.
rest it on my tongue. So I articulate with the back of my tongue instead of articulating with the tip of my tongue. So what I found is
Okay.
this kind of articulation has kind of like warmed up my tone a lot, since the reed is like settled on my tongue instead of my lip, if that makes sense. But
Okay.
I think like overall though, this kind of tone is easily able to be developed as a saxophonist and as any kind of woodwind instrumentalist. And also friend Shavel is on this call, and I do want to call him out too because his tone is incredible, and I know that he and I have two separate embouchures, but he's able
Mm-hmm.
to develop this kind of unique tone. And my advice to you, like if you're, I'm not sure if you're a saxophonist. I do see in your profile picture though that you're a keyboard, or
Keyboard player. Yeah.
yeah, you're a keyboardist. Um,
Yeah.
but if you know you're a woodwind instrumentalist, definitely just listen as much as you can and do a copy copycat type thing. And this can also work with keyboard as well. Do as much as you can and just copy, because the goal is to, once you can copy a tone that you really like, you'll be able to implement it into your own sound.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and my little daughter name is Ariana also. So bless up yourself.
Tell her I said hi, and
All
tell her
right.
my new twin.
All right. Thank you.
Bless up yourself, Biggie.
Yeah, man.
All
All
right,
right.
guys. Any other question for Ariana?
I'm using a cell phone, so I can't raise my hand. I just want to ask Ariana, what's your choice in terms of brand of saxophones? What's your preference? What do you like to use?
That's a great question. If I'm being honest with you, right now I'm playing on a Selmer Super Action 80 Series 2. But if I'm being honest with you, the brand of the saxophone only really matters so much. What really matters is the person that is playing behind the instrument. So are you a beginner or intermediate or advanced saxophonist, Ronaldo?
I'm actually a music teacher. I'm a keyboard player, but I teach also my students how to play these instruments. So they asked me that question recently, and it's so funny that I logged on tonight and saw the presentation and was intrigued by it. Right?
Okay, great. Okay, so what you can tell your students, two incredible brands that I will recommend for you to tell your students is one, Yamaha. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Yamaha, but it's a great brand for especially beginner and intermediate as well as advanced saxophone players. And then Jupiter is another great brand for beginners and intermediate saxophonists. But definitely when you do meet have this conversation with your students, definitely encourage them to really like focus more on the opportunity to learn the instrument versus on what specific brand they really choose. Because at the end of the day, like I said, the musician themselves really creates that unique sound. The instrument itself doesn't necessarily create it.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Any other?
There's a question in the chat.
There's a question in the chat.
Daniel Edwards asked, "What planet are you from?"
The
Where's
real,
Daniel?
the real,
Daniel.
the real question is, what brand mics do you use? That's what he's asking.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Thank you. Um, Great question. Okay, I have three main mics that I use. The first mic is my iPhone microphone. Literally just recording with your phone and then taking that audio, putting it into Logic or GarageBand or uh, what other kind of digital audio workstation is there? Audacity, Reason, Pro Tools. Put it in there, add some reverb, and you're good to go. The sound quality it will sound great. My second microphone that I use is a Shure 98H Beta. It's a clip-on sax mic that I purchased online. And then the third mic that I use is a Shure SM27 microphone. I use that one when I'm doing like professional recordings for people's EPs or albums. That's like my studio microphone. So I put that one up on the stand and plug it in. I can write down these names in the chat for you.
Sure.
All right. There's another question from Ruthie. If you don't have a saxophone teacher, how do you know what exactly to practice?
That's a great question. This one is really kind of cliche, but YouTube is a really great helper. Just going to YouTube and Googling how to play the saxophone or beginner saxophone is always great. And then also, if you're interested in studying privately with the saxophonist, I personally am not doing private lessons right now, but I know two incredible mentees. Chavel's on this chat, and my mentee Mikey. I don't know if he's on this chat, but he's also a great saxophonist who would love to do private saxophone lessons, as well as a couple other friends that I have online who would love to work with you. So if that is something that you're interested in, feel free to send me an email. I'm going to write my email in the chat again and I can connect you. And then also, if you don't necessarily want a private teacher, but if you just want somebody to guide you and to help you with the next steps on how to learn, where to start, just feel free to email me and I can email you as much material as I can to get you started.
Awesome. All right. I think we have one question from YouTube. Let me pick up all the guys who are joining this stream on YouTube. We have Denisha Gooden. She says that she is your biggest fan. I don't know if you know that person. All right. We have Sashiel Thompson. We have Garnet Gibson. All right, big up yourself, guys, on YouTube. Now, this is a question from Sashiel Thompson on YouTube. How long do you practice for?
Thank you for asking, Sashil. If I'm being honest with you, I do not practice, and it's a terrible habit, and I'm trying to change that. But it's been a really bad habit that I've had ever since I started playing the saxophone. Really, I really don't practice that much. I should though. But when I do practice, I do utilize, those exercises that I shared in the presentation. I specifically focus a lot on my scales because that's just a huge part of being able to play and navigate the instrument, as well as long tones and arpeggios and things like that. Um, However, even though I don't practice that much, I do have some great like laid out practice routines that I can share with you. If you want to email me, I can share that with you on ways to best practice the saxophone and different things you can implement into your practice routine. But yes, I see you guys in the chat. I'm keeping it real with you guys, and you can ask my family because I'm not even telling a lie right now. Like I really do not get that much time to practice. I'm not lying. I promise I don't.
Awesome. All right, let's take Jonathan Foga.
Good evening, everybody.
Yes, sir.
So my question is, if you can just tell us a little more about what it's like connecting with all the different musicians from not just America but all across the world. The different cultures, the way how they express themselves. What's it like personally for you?
Thank you, Jonathan. That was beautiful. Honestly, it is beautiful. Like that's the main word. It's absolutely beautiful connecting with international musicians. And one thing that I've come to realize is adding on to what my dad stated earlier about how just this is a international language. Everyone is just so similar. Like not in a bad way, but just like in a good way. And it's kind of comforting to be able to enter these musical spaces. Like for example, I have a mentee, Temilayo, and she lives in Temilayo Abadunrin. She lives in Nigeria, and she is a 10-year-old alto saxophonist. She's one of my mentees, and just being able to work with her and learn and network with other Nigerian and musicians as well as musicians in Ghana has just been so eye opening. But it's beautiful because we kind of just like we're all the same person, but just in different cultures. And same with the musicians that I've been able to network with in Jamaica as well. Like even talking with you, Jonathan, and Joe and Shabo and things like we're very similar people, but just culturally different. And to me that's just a very beautiful thing. Just seeing the way that my profession and that the subject that I study in school can connect me so deeply to so many people who are different than me, but at the same time so similar to me.
Okay,
Awesome.
thank you.
Chauvel.
Blessings.
Bless up, Chauvel.
Yeah. So I have a very, very critical question. Now, musicians oftentimes are great listeners, are great sight, you know, players, they read and all. I realize that you have a great balance as it relates to, you know, ear playing and the whole aspect of reading. You are first of many also that I see really presenting content on a score. How do you, or what would you say to us musicians, saxophonists, you know, how to create that balance, because a lot of times there's a great imbalance in that aspect of music.
That's beautiful. Beautiful question. I know the reason why I utilize sheet music is just because that is actually how I was taught to play the saxophone. I had the privilege of being raised in a public school system in Connecticut, where I was taught to read sheet music before I was taught to play the saxophone, if that makes sense. But I'm gonna write a website in the chat called the Sight Reading Factory. I'm gonna share that link in the chat. And to anyone, actually, I'm sorry, that's the wrong link. Okay, let me share this again. So to anyone who is not comfortable with sight reading, I encourage you to go to that website and use it every single day. Just practice it from the beginner level and just practice memorizing what treble clef is, what the bass clef is, how to read these different notes. And the more you do that, the more comfortable you will become with sight reading. And I do believe strongly that the sound that you produce on your instrument matters way more than your ability to sight read, your ability to read sheet music. It really does matter way more. So if you are somebody who has struggled with sight reading in the past, or you feel like you're struggling with it and you feel like your struggle with sight reading will somehow lessen your ability to be a successful musician, I'm just going to let you know from now, it really does not mean anything. Like, it does not have to determine your worth as a musician. If you cannot sight read, that doesn't matter. What matters is how you sound and the sound you're able to implement on your instrument. But yes, I encourage you to go to that website, and Shava as well. I encourage you, the more you learn and get comfortable with sight reading and being able to notate and write down things and transcribe things on a sheet of paper, just do it more often. Like when you play a video or if you play a solo, just listen back like I did for this presentation, listen back to your solo and start to write out what you played. And then you'll find like being able to visually see what you play and hear what you play will also just enhance your ability to improvise and your ability to understand music as a whole.
All right. Thanks much.
Awesome. Bless up, Chavel. All right, we're going to take one final question from Joe Davis as we are almost into the time of our second live stream. Joe.
Good morning, good afternoon, good night. I have a question, right? For the goat herself. Essentially, right? I know that modes as a method of approaching soloing is something that is used widely in the jazz scene and in the soloing scene in general. Would you consider that as an essential thing to soloing? And have you incorporated that into the way that you approach soloing?
Thank you, Goat, for asking that question. Absolutely, yes. Yes, 100%. And actually, the major scale exercise that I was telling you guys about in the presentation, when I teach that with my students, we actually do go into modes as well and relate that to that exercise, because it's just great. Modes to me is really just like a better way to navigate each scale. So it's really, the more the better, if that makes sense. Like the more you're comfortable with your modes and the more you're comfortable with your scales, the more options you have when it comes to like choosing things to implement into your solos. So yes, I would say it's 100% essential. And I mean, you're already the GOAT, you already know all of that stuff. So just like continue to be great. And also don't forget to give me your autograph after this, because you're a huge inspiration to me.
I'll be waiting on yours.
And also, guys, after this, Joe Davis will be having an interview as well as a presentation. So please stay tuned for that, because he's incredible and you really want to hear what he's about to share with us this evening. So yes, stay tuned for that.
Awesome, awesome. Ariana, I would like to say thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and share with us on the Music Hacks Network. And also to Mr. Jonathan Fogel for making this possible. All right, I did enjoy that presentation, and I'm sure all the persons who were on Bless up Fogel. Right. all the persons who tuned in tonight, they were really, really impressed and they benefited from this presentation. Thank you very much. And I would like to, before I go, I would like to ask you please to take me under your